And so we see millions and millions of humans living in a pseudo-reality, with a sense of self that is ultimately a fiction, that is always insufficient, always feeling a sense of lack, always needing more, always even needing to make enemies so that it can still define itself as me and the other, needing some kind of conflict so that its separate sense of self can remain intact. What can I be in conflict with today? What can I complain about now so that I can feel a little bit more myself? Ah, there it is. And so when millions of humans live like that, then the result is what we read as human history, a dreadful tale of incredible suffering that humans inflict on each other and other life forms on the planet. Incredible suffering. And so the same you see on television tonight. When you switch on the news, you will see just how mad the collective consciousness is of humanity in its present evolutionary stage. And yet, here we are. Here we are, and we recognize that all that is a form of, one could say, collective mental illness that humanity is suffering from. And so one could say, well, how can God allow a whole species to become mentally ill? I heard that question somewhere in somebody's mind. And of course, you can ask the same question on a personal level. Does God allow me to be ill? How dare he, she, it, to allow me to be ill, to suffer? And of course, within the larger whole, everything has its place, and everything is as it should, including your personal illness for the moment. Doesn't mean healing cannot happen. But there are many humans here who were brought here, who would not be here if they had not suffered some kind of dysfunction in their lives. Physical illness perhaps, or some great loss. And so you can already see on your personal level that your suffering, your physical suffering, whatever it may be, to some extent began to dissolve the egoic structures in your mind. It started to shake it loose so that something else could come through. And you suddenly found yourself becoming interested in the present moment. And then you end up here. And no matter what your story is, and some of you may feel that it was all one big mistake. The story of me was all one big mistake. You are here now. And that's an amazing thing to be here now and see that was the story. And the outcome of all that big mistake was that now you are stepping out of it and you realize it as, yes, on the level of form, this is how my life unfolded. And now let me speak personally for one moment. I could easily look upon my whole life, let's say until the world told me that I was important a few years ago, it happened. Before that, nobody told me I was important. Until that, I could look at my whole life up to that point as one complete disaster. Nothing actually worked out. I tried that for a few years, and then I was at university, and then I did my PhD, and then I gave that up, and then I drifted for 2 years, and then I went into that, and then I tried that, and it didn't, many things, okay, and then my mother said, okay, now you're 45, what have you achieved? Others have already built up big businesses. And so on the level of story, it was a big disaster. And yet, fortunately, at some point already, I had given up identification with the story. That the story was only my identity up to the age of 29, and it was a very unhappy one, even there. Even when that was my relatively successful. The only worldly success I had was I did well at university up to before I became a graduate student. And it made me happy for 2 weeks. And so, isn't it strange that a failed story can produce a flower? The flower of consciousness. And perhaps the flower of consciousness needs the mud out of which it grows. You have the beautiful image of the lotus in Buddhism, the symbol of Buddhism. The lotus flower, it has its roots in the mud, and it grows out of that. And there's nothing more beautiful in human life than a failed story. And the good news is, every story ultimately fails because the story is based on the forms, it identifies with forms, and no forms last for that long. No building lasts for that long, eventually it crumbles. All forms are temporary and they are beautiful. The essence that is hiding in each form is the formless one life. That is indestructible, but even this beautiful form, Finjon, it is not eternal as a form, but the eternal shines through the forms here. That is why, because the forms are transparent, and you also are not eternal as this form, and yet a transparency is happening in you even as you sit here, so that that which is beyond form, no matter what we call it, stillness, presence, beingness, a deep sense of I am, that before got mixed up with a story of me, and that the preciousness of being is your true specialness. What the egoic self had been looking for on the level of the story, I want to be special, that very thought obscured the fact that you already could not be more special than you are now, but not special in the egoic sense that more than he or more than she. Special in the sense that there is a beauty and preciousness that is the essence of your being, and that is what deep down you can sense. Even the person who is most completely identified with their story and their conceptual sense of self, they feel that there's something precious that is me, but they confuse it with the forms, thought forms. It gets that essence of being, which is formless and timeless, gets mixed up with form, with thought, and a story in the head. And that is what the Buddha calls the fictitious self, the self that the Buddha, even 2,600 years ago, recognized as an illusion, an enormous insight, the greatest, perhaps the greatest insight of all humanity, when he recognized the self is an illusion. And by that he means the self that is identified with any form, thought form, physical form, anything. And that is the illusion, to lose oneself in some form. And then the preciousness of being, that is the essence, that is timeless and formless in every human and in every life form, one could say, incarnates in form. And there's nothing wrong with incarnating in form as long as you know yourself as that which is beyond form. But if you lose yourself in the incarnation, and ultimately you had to do that too, that was part of the totality of how things work. To lose oneself is, as the Buddha called it, suffering. Then you suffer because you don't know who you are anymore. You're looking for yourself in some form, in some thought form, in some physical form that you identify with, which is then also a thought form. Me. And so everybody is looking for the essence of their being, not knowing that the specialness that they look for is already the essence of who they are. But they can only find it when they stop looking for themselves in the future through more. So the one place, it's all like some strange game. The one place where you truly can only find yourself in that one place most humans never look, which is the present moment. They look there for themselves. And to feel, I want to be more. On the level of form, you can temporarily be more, that's true. And then that dissolves again. But there is a level within yourself where more does not operate. You do not need to be more. You are already a full expression of the one life. You are already complete on the level of the timeless, the essence of your being. Now, the only reason why you needed time was you needed to be ready to hear this truth and recognize it as a truth. For that, one could say you need time to hear the message that to be who you are, you don't need time. But the paradox is, there are still many humans to whom this would be meaningless, and they don't come here. They need, in other words, they need more time. They need to continue to look for themselves, and they need to continue to be frustrated in their search. That is part of the larger design. The frustration is built into human existence. And so that's what the world is for, the so-called world. It is there to frustrate you and to drive you deeper, to eventually drive you out of identification with form. Because as long as you're identified with form, it is so frustrating. And you can never make it. You can never arrange the forms and accumulate all the forms that you need, you think you need to be yourself. Or sometimes you can do it for a very brief time span. You can suddenly find everything is now working in my life. My health is good, my relationship is great, great money, got possessions, everybody loves me. They all write good things about me. It's all working. My job, my living situation, my finances, my health, my relationships, they're all great. But before long, something there starts to crumble here or there. It's either the finances, or it's the relationship, or it's the living situation. So it's in the nature of the world of form that nothing stays fixed for very long. And so it starts to crumble again here. You just had sorted it all out. And so that's why humans, they experience life as a series of frustrations. Why can't it work? And so it doesn't work because they are looking for themselves there. They are demanding that the world of form should make them complete and happy. I demand that this world should complete who I am, should give me my sense of self. I just need this and that from there, and then that's all. This is what I demand. And then it's not happening. There's something wrong here. Life isn't working. It seems to be working for everybody else, but it's not working for me. I read in the magazines, all the glossy people, it seems to be working for them. But only if you look at the glossy pictures. If you visited them at home, you would see that it's not working for them either. So it's built into living here is frustration. It's meant to be frustrating. This is the whole, there is a purpose, but people haven't seen it. So it's quite a relief to recognize, first of all, the world cannot make me happy. To demand that situations, people, places, or attainments should complete me or make me happy are bound to be frustrated, whether I attain or do not attain. Okay, so that looks very negative, doesn't it? And that's why when you don't go deeper, when you only see the surface, you see, oh, all is vanity, as the Old Testament prophet said. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. I've seen it all. I can't remember the exact words, but I'm giving you a free translation. I've seen it all, I've done it all, and it's all completely meaningless. That's what he said. And that was probably an elderly man who had tried it all. And now, why did they put this into the Bible? Isn't it very negative to have such a statement that life is completely vain, whatever you can achieve is vanity? They put that in there because when you see the truth of it, you're already becoming free of it. The seeing of the inability of the world to make you happy, the seeing of the short-lived nature of whatever forms you encounter in your life, what is it in you that is able to see that and say, ah, or even laugh? What before was a dreadful story and frustration, you suddenly step out of your own story and see that your own frustrating story is not your personal dilemma, but the human condition. And you derived your sense of self from that, which is nothing personal whatsoever. It's the human condition. And that it's the human condition in its unconscious state, its unenlightened state. And that's what gave you your sense of personal selfhood, and that you wanted to cling to. And now you step out of it by simply seeing it. The seeing means something is arising that is not part of that unconsciousness. And that is why they put it into the Bible, because when you see it, that which can witness that in you, the impermanent nature of all forms, the fictitious nature of the mind-made story, what is it in you that is able to look at that and see, that is not thought, that is the ability to be aware and hold up the mirror of awareness and simply see it there. Or let's say better, the light of awareness shines on it. The light of awareness shines on it and sees what before you were trapped in, the frustrating story of my life. And there's no life that's not ultimately frustrating. It only begins, it loses its frustration when you do not look to the world anymore for your satisfaction or for yourself. When you give up demanding that people, places, situations should make you happy and fulfill you, you don't demand it anymore, then suddenly the ability arises to allow the forms of this moment to be as they are. Because life at this moment already, always is as it is.